In this video, we're going to talk about what it really means to understand what you're reading. Understanding correctly, simply, accurately what you're reading, that's how you're going to dominate the SAT, the GRE, the GMAT, the LSAT, any school, English class, college class, whatever it is. It's all going to come down to, can you understand simply what's being said? Now, the reason that many people have difficulty with this is in school, you're essentially rewarded for not knowing what you're talking about. If your teacher asks you what this sentence means, so I've put this sentence, a famous sentence, the opening of the Declaration of Independence, what this sentence means, and you basically go through it like one word at a time, and just start changing the words to a synonym, like you change events to happenings, and you change it becomes necessary to like it is necessary, and for one people you might say one group of persons, and you basically go through this and just replace words and phrases with synonyms, which a computer program could do, a monkey with a dictionary could do. If you do that, you're probably going to get an A in your English class. When you're writing papers in English, if you just say, just as it says in the Declaration of Independence, and you just take some random piece of this and then continue from there, you'll also probably get an A. And here's why. Your teacher understands what it says. And when you take this random piece and it kind of seems to make sense, your teacher is going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that you put this in because you understood it, not because you're just randomly copying and pasting nonsense. And this is a common way to trick people whenever you're dealing with people who accept over-complex writing. Interestingly, a computer program was written that basically mimics a very dense and complex writing style, and was submitting to academic journals. It was writing literal nonsense, but in a prettified form. And even in those academic journals, which are reviewed by experts, they managed, the people who wrote this computer program managed to get these fake nonsensical articles that sort of followed the right feel and pattern into academic journals. And the computer was just writing just words together that were nonsense. So it works. This thing that many of you have learned to do, it's going to work in school. It'll work in college. But it's not going to work on helping you actually understand what you're doing. If you go to law school, it certainly won't help. On the SAT, the GRE, the GMAT, the LSAT, it's not going to help. You actually have to learn to understand what you're doing. And because you haven't really practiced it yet, you probably haven't really practiced it yet, it's just a new skill. It's going to be hard. The tools that you're going to use for this will include things like grammar, logic, vocabulary, and of course you're going to work on all of those in Vora Method. But the goal has to be clear. The goal has to be you need to be able to understand and explain whatever you're reading in very simple words, in short sentences, like you're able to explain it to a small child. So if I just took this and replaced some words, like, in title, I replaced a guarantee, and I replaced mankind to the people, replaced mankind with the people, and I replaced requires and necessitates, and I just do that for all the words in this, which I know you guys do in your English classes. If I do that and I give it to a child, they're not going to understand it any more than they did before, because I don't understand it any more than I did before. So let's look at what does understanding look like. If you can understand it, you can express it simply. At Vora Method, if you hide behind very big and complex sentences the way you do in English class, we're going to call you out on it right away and just have you redo it until you can do it simply. And that's for your benefit. Simple understanding is understanding. That convoluted thing, that's just fake non-understanding. It's nothing. So let's go through this. In this case, I'm actually going to just read this left to right. Normally, obviously, if you're reading something this dense, we're going to break it down grammatically. But I'm going to show even reading this left to right, just going through the sentence, you can break it down pretty easily. All right, let's look at this. When in the course of human events, what is it? What is a human event? I mean, just put the words together. Human events are events that have to do with humans. So, for example, if there is an ice storm in Antarctica, it's not a human event because it doesn't affect any humans. If there's a civil war, that's obviously a human event because it affects humans. An election, that's a human event. Like of an underground fish dying is not a human event. I mean, underwater fish dying is not a human event. So you get the idea, right? When in the course of human events it becomes necessary. So when in the course of human events, that just means during the events that affect people, so at some point that people care about, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands. Now, bands is a tricky word because it can mean lots of things. It could mean like a group of musicians, but clearly in this situation, well, once you understand it, a band is just something that connects one thing to another thing. Like you might use a rubber band to connect two books together or something. To dissolve the bands just means to break the bands, which have connected them to another. So what type of bands? The bands that connect one group to another. So let's look at what this says so far. When one group of people need to break away from another group of people. That's it. If one group needs to separate from another group, and then to do what? To assume the power among the powers of the earth, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. What does that mean? It just means that you're taking some of these powers to yourself. Assuming a power means saying that you now have this power. What power specifically? The power to say that you are separate from a group and equal to that group. You're no longer a colony. You're not subservient. You're separate from that group and you're equal to the group. So let's look at what you have up to here. It basically says when one group wants to separate from another group and declare themselves equal, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires, what are the opinions of mankind? That means it's just like popular opinion, what people in general think. If you respect the opinions of mankind, it means you have respect for just general people's opinions. And if you have that respect, it requires that you should declare the causes. What does that mean? To explain why you need to separate, declare the cause which impel them to separation. So if you simplify this, and you might go through this, obviously in class, it might take you a day, it might take you a month, who cares, to really understand this. But what it means is this. When one group needs to separate from another group, out of respect for people in general, they should explain why. And now that we understand what this is saying, look at the amazing thing that happens. It's not just about, Thomas Jefferson or anything like that. Now it's a general principle you could apply to anything. You can say in a business, in a company, if one group wants to separate from that company and start their own company, they should tell the world why. Why? Because they need to, you don't just like do a thing and not explain why you're doing it. Out of respect for your fellow man, you just tell them why. If one part of a family wants to separate and become a separate and independent and equal family, they should tell everyone why. See how easy, like once you understand it, you can apply it to something else. You can apply it to things. You can apply it to a tribe. When half the tribe wants to leave the rest of the tribe, they should tell people why. To know whether or not you've understood a thing, here are the tests. First, can you explain it simply? Like really simply. Not just replacing one word with synonyms like English class at school, but actually can you explain it and understand it very simply? And then can you apply whatever principle is being discussed to other things simply, to other simple, normal things that are different. So in other words, notice I'm not just saying like, well, you could also apply this to the French Revolution. Yeah, but that's like the same basic idea. No, I'm saying, could you apply this to a club at school? Sure. If half the club wants to leave, they should tell people why. Could you apply this to a doctor's office? Yeah, if there's a group of doctors and 3 of them want to leave, they should tell people why. That's what understanding looks like. It means you can express it simply, you can apply it to other things, and that's the level of understanding we're going to be working for at Vor Method. It's not like English class where you just like, take a bunch of quotes out of context and your teacher gives you an A. That's not useful. That's not helping you. This is going to be making sure you really understand it, you can think about it simply, and apply it simply. And if you can do that, you're going to dominate not just your school English classes and college English classes, AP History exam, SAT, the SAT Literature subject test, GRE, GMAT, LSAT, all of that comes down to these basic things that if you can understand it simply and apply it simply, then you're going to dominate whatever reading-related task you're doing.